The sleek silver ships of the Galactic Council dropped out of hyperspace near the third planet, orbiting a small yellow star. Commander Veltar adjusted his breathing apparatus and studied the readings on his console. His forearms moved quickly across the controls as data streams filled his screens. "Another nuclear signature, Commander," reported his science officer through the ship's communication system. "But these readings are strange, very strange." Veltar had seen this situation 47 times in his career. A young species discovers how to split atoms. They build weapons. They destroy themselves. The Council arrives too late to help, marks another dead world on their charts, and moves on. It was always the same sad story. But something was different this time. "Sir, the nuclear signatures are moving," called out Lieutenant Kex from the sensor station. "They're not random explosions, they're organized, and they're fast." Veltar's large eyes widened. Moving nuclear signatures meant only one thing: weapons. Lots of weapons, probably aimed at each other. This species was likely in the middle of destroying itself right now. "Prepare the emergency protocols," he ordered. "We may need to evacuate survivors." Meanwhile, on Luna Station orbiting Earth's, Moon Captain Lee Minho stood in the observation deck watching humanity's greatest achievement prepare for launch. The ship Teguk stretched nearly 2 kilometers long, its massive metal plate gleaming under the lights of the lunar base. "All systems ready, Captain," announced Lieutenant Park Sora from her position at the communications panel. Her fingers danced over the holographic displays as she coordinated with engineering teams across the massive vessel. Captain Minho nodded and activated his communicator. "Chief Engineer Kim, status report." "All nuclear charges loaded and verified, sir," came the reply from deep within the ship. "Shock absorbers calibrated. Pusher plate aligned. We're ready to light the fires and ride the thunder all the way to Proxima Centauri." The captain smiled. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. Humanity's first interstellar vessel was about to make history using a propulsion system that would have terrified their ancestors. In the depths of the Teguk, Chief Engineer Kim Daeho made final checks on the nuclear pulse drive. Rows of small nuclear devices sat in their launch tubes, each one carefully designed to explode at precisely the right moment and distance behind the ship's enormous pusher plate. The controlled explosions would push the massive vessel forward, accelerating it to speeds no chemical rocket could ever achieve. "Beginning countdown sequence so," announced the ship's computer in a calm female voice. "T-minus 60 seconds to first pulse detonation." Above them, Commander Veltar watched his sensors with growing confusion. The nuclear signatures weren't weapons fire between warring nations. They were coming from a single source, and that source was accelerating away from the planet at an impossible rate. "Sir," his science officer called out with obvious confusion in his voice, "I think they're using nuclear explosions for propulsion." Veltar's breathing apparatus made a strange whistling sound, the equivalent of a human gasp. In all his years of service and all the records of the Galactic Council, no species had ever been insane enough to ride nuclear explosions through space. Nuclear energy meant death. It meant the end of civilizations. It meant planets turned to radioactive wastelands. "That's impossible," he muttered. "No intelligent species would willingly detonate nuclear devices near their own ships. It would be suicide." "T-minus 10 seconds, announced the Teguk's computer. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pulse detonation initiated. The first nuclear charge exploded exactly 50 meters behind the pusher plate. The massive shock absorbers compressed and expanded, absorbing the incredible force and converting it into smooth forward motion. The Teguk lurched forward, its crew pressed back into their seats by the acceleration. "First pulse successful," reported Chief Engineer Kim over the intercom. "All systems nominal. Beginning pulse sequence for sustained acceleration." Captain Minho felt the rhythmic push of each explosion as the ship began its journey toward the stars. Every 2 seconds, another small nuclear device detonated behind them, each explosion pushing them faster and faster through the solar system. On his command ship, Veltar watched the impossible sight of a vessel surfing a chain of nuclear explosions through space. His translation computer struggled to process the radio communications coming from the human ship. Words like pulse frequency and optimal detonation distance filled the channels where he had expected to hear screams of terror. "Commander," his communications officer reported with obvious disbelief. "They're broadcasting what appears to be engineering data. Technical specifications. They seem to be proud of what they're doing." Veltar stared at the tactical display showing the human vessel's trajectory. The ship was heading for the nearest star system at a significant fraction of light speed, powered by controlled nuclear explosions that would have reduced any other species to radioactive ash. "Sir, should we intercept and attempt communication?" asked his pilot. Veltar considered this carefully. First contact protocols were clear: establish communication, assess technological level, determine threat potential. But nothing in the protocols covered what to do when you encountered a species crazy enough to use weapons of mass destruction as their preferred method of space travel. "Follow at maximum safe distance," he finally ordered. "And send a priority message to Council, headquarters. Tell them we've found something unprecedented, a species that calls death their highway to the stars." 3 days after the first encounter, Commander Veltar's diplomatic shuttle carefully docked with the human vessel Teguk. His hands shook slightly as he checked his environmental suit one final time. Never in his 40 years of service had he boarded a ship powered by nuclear explosions. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and Veltar stepped into what he expected to be a radiation-soaked death trap. Instead, he found a clean, well-lit corridor with humans walking around casually without any protective gear. The radiation levels on his scanner showed normal background readings. "Welcome aboard, Commander," said Captain Lee Minho with a warm smile. "I hope your journey wasn't too uncomfortable. Our pulse drive can create some rough turbulence for ships following behind us." Veltar's translator worked overtime to process the casual way the human captain spoke about nuclear explosions causing turbulence. On his homeworld, a single nuclear detonation would trigger planetary evacuation procedures. "How are you still alive?" Veltar blurted out, then immediately regretted his poor diplomatic manners. Captain Minho laughed. "Good shielding and better engineering. Would you like Chief Engineer Kim to explain how it works?" Within minutes, Veltar found himself in the ship's engineering section, surrounded by massive machinery that hummed with barely contained power. Chief Engineer Kim Daeho stood beside a holographic display showing the ship's propulsion system in 3 dimensions. "The nuclear pulse drive is actually our most conservative propulsion method," Kim explained, pointing to various components on the display. "Each nuclear charge detonates exactly 50 meters behind our pusher plate. The shock absorbers convert the explosion energy into smooth forward thrust." Veltar stared at the human engineer. Conservative? If this was conservative, what did humans consider aggressive? "We're also testing antimatter-catalyzed fusion drives for our next generation of ships," continued Science Officer Yoon Nari, joining the conversation with a tablet full of technical data. "The theoretical energy output is much higher than nuclear pulse propulsion." The alien commander's breathing apparatus made distressed whistling sounds. Antimatter was considered the most dangerous substance in the known galaxy. Most species stored tiny amounts under maximum security protocols. These humans were talking about using it to power their ships. "And our research team believes we're close to cracking controlled black hole manipulation," added Chief Medical Officer Han Ji-woo cheerfully. "Imagine the energy potential of a miniature black hole properly contained and regulated." Veltar's legs nearly gave out. Black holes were cosmic monsters that destroyed entire star systems. The idea of creating one intentionally, let alone putting it inside a spaceship, violated every principle of sane engineering he had ever learned. "You want to build black holes inside your ships?" he managed to ask. "Not inside," corrected Engineer Kim. "That would be dangerous. We'd tow them behind the ship in a specially designed containment field. Much safer that way. Much safer." Veltar's species had spent thousands of years developing elegant gravity manipulation technology, specifically to avoid dangerous forces. These humans seemed determined to harness every destructive force in the universe and turn it into transportation. "Perhaps we should show him the fusion ramjet prototypes," suggested Lieutenant Park Sora from her position at a nearby control station. "Oh yes," said Science Officer Yoon with obvious excitement. "We're designing ships that collect interstellar hydrogen as they fly and compress it into fusion fuel. The faster the ship goes, the more fuel it collects, and the faster it can go. No fuel stops needed for interstellar travel." Veltar tried to process this information. His people's ships required careful refueling at established stations with specific types of exotic matter. These humans were planning to turn the empty space between stars into their fuel source. "How do you compress interstellar hydrogen into fusion fuel?" he asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. "Magnetic field compression," explained Engineer Kim, matter-of-factly. "We generate magnetic fields strong enough to squeeze hydrogen atoms together until they fuse. The same basic principle we use in our power plants, just scaled up for propulsion. Strong magnetic fields capable of forcing nuclear fusion." Veltar realized these humans were essentially building controlled stars inside their engines. His species used solar panels to carefully collect energy from their sun. Humans were building their own suns and carrying them around in their ships. "Commander," said Captain Minho, noticing the alien's distressed state, "I think you might be misunderstanding our approach to engineering. We don't see these forces as dangerous. We see them as tools waiting to be properly understood and controlled." "But nuclear explosions, antimatter, black holes," Veltar protested. "These things destroy planets. They end civilizations, only if you don't know how to handle them properly," replied Chief Engineer Kim with a shrug. "Fire can burn down your house or cook your dinner. It all depends on how you use it." Science Officer Yoon nodded in agreement. "Every form of energy can be destructive or useful. Nuclear fusion powers our sun and gives us life. We're just learning to create that same process in a controlled environment." As the tour continued, Veltar saw humans casually working with technology that would require maximum security clearance on any Council world. They discussed theoretical weapons that could crack planets as if they were talking about household appliances. They planned to harvest energy from dying stars and surf the gravitational waves of colliding galaxies. What terrified every other species in the galaxy, humans saw as their next engineering challenge. They had turned the universe's most destructive forces into their transportation network, and they were just getting started. The emergency alarms began screaming throughout Commander Veltar's diplomatic vessel at 347 ship time. He jerked awake in his sleeping chamber as red warning lights flashed across the walls. His forearms scrambled for the communication panel, while his breathing apparatus adjusted automatically for stress conditions. "Bridge to Commander," came the panicked voice of his pilot. "We have multiple hull breaches. Micrometeor shower came out of nowhere. Hull integrity dropping fast." Veltar rushed to the bridge, his hooved feet clicking against the metal deck plates. Through the main viewport, he could see thousands of tiny rocks racing past their ship, like deadly rain. Each impact sent vibrations through the vessel's frame. Somewhere in the distance, sparks flew from damaged systems. "Damage report," he ordered, sliding into his command chair. 23 hull breaches across 7 sections, reported his science officer, her voice tight with fear. "Atmosphere leaking in multiple locations. Gravity generators failing on decks 4 and 5. Life support systems operating at 60% efficiency." The ship shuddered as another wave of micrometeors peppered their hull. Veltar watched his crew work frantically at their stations, but he knew they were in serious trouble. His species had built their ships for elegant travel through safe space lanes, not for emergency repairs in hostile environments. "Emergency protocols activated," announced the ship's computer in a calm voice that contrasted sharply with the chaos around them. "Estimated time until life support failure, 4 hours, 37 minutes. Veltar closed his large eyes and prepared to send a final message to Council headquarters. His diplomatic mission would end in failure, his crew would die in the cold vacuum of space, and the human ship would continue on its journey unaware of their fate. Then his communications. Officer looked up from her station with surprise. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. They're asking if we need assistance." Before Veltar could respond, Captain Lee Minho's voice crackled over the speakers. "Commander Veltar, we're reading multiple hull breaches on your ship. Our sensors show you're venting atmosphere fast. Do you need help?" Captain, Veltar replied, trying to keep his voice steady. We have suffered significant damage from meteor impacts. Our repair systems are not designed for this type of emergency. Understood, we're moving to assist. Stand by. Within minutes, the massive human ship Teguk appeared alongside the damaged alien vessel. Veltar watched through his viewports as human crew members in bulky spacesuits emerged from airlocks, carrying equipment he didn't recognize. Chief Engineer Kim Daeho's voice came over the radio as he jetted toward the first hull breach using a small thruster pack. These holes aren't too bad. We can patch them up quick. Park, bring me the welding kit and some hull plating. Lieutenant Park Sora followed behind him, towing a container full of repair equipment. To Veltar's amazement, the humans began welding metal patches directly onto his ship's hull while floating in open space. Sparks flew around them as they worked, but they seemed completely unconcerned about the danger. Commander, called his science officer. Their welding equipment appears to be plasma-based. They're essentially using controlled weapons to repair our hull. Veltar watched in fascination as the humans turned tools of destruction into instruments of salvation. The same plasma technology that could cut through battleship armor was being used to seal his ship's wounds. Sir, his pilot reported with growing panic. Our trajectory has shifted. The meteor impacts knocked us off course. We're heading directly toward that asteroid field. Veltar looked at the navigation display and felt his heart sink. The dense field of spinning rocks ahead would tear their already damaged ship apart completely. His species' navigation systems could plot elegant courses through empty space, but they couldn't handle rapid course corrections in emergency situations. Captain Minho's voice came over the radio again. We see your navigation problem, Commander. We can fix that too. How? Veltar asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer would terrify him. Small nuclear charge, replied Chief Medical. Officer Han Jiwoo matter-of-factly. Maybe half a kiloton, just enough to nudge you clear of those asteroids. We do this kind of thing all the time. Veltar's breathing apparatus made frantic whistling sounds. You want to detonate a nuclear weapon near our ship? Not near your ship, corrected Engineer Kim over the radio as he continued welding hull patches. About 200 meters off your port side. The explosion will create a pressure wave that pushes you onto a safe trajectory. Very precise. Very controlled. The alien commander gripped his chair arms with all four hands. What these? Humans called a small nuclear charge would be classified as a weapon of mass destruction by every council species. They were talking about using it for a minor course correction as casually as his people discussed adjusting their gravity fields. Trust us, Commander, said Captain Minho. We've been using controlled explosions for everything since we learned to make fire. This is just a bigger firecracker. Before Veltar could protest, a brilliant flash lit up space off their port side. The nuclear explosion expanded in a perfect sphere of energy, and the pressure wave struck their ship exactly as the humans had calculated. The vessel's trajectory shifted smoothly away from the asteroid field. Course correction successful, reported Science Officer Yoon Nari. You're now on a safe heading, Commander. As the human repair crews finished their work and returned to their own ship, Veltar stared at his undamaged hull and corrected navigation display. His crew was alive, his ship was functional, and they had been saved by beings who treated nuclear weapons as routine maintenance tools. Captain Minho, he said into his communicator, how do your people remain so calm when using such dangerous forces? The human captain's reply came with obvious amusement. Commander, we've learned that the universe doesn't care whether we're afraid of it or not, so we decided to stop being afraid and start being prepared instead. The attack came without warning at 14:23 hours ship time. Commander Veltar was reviewing diplomatic reports when his tactical officer's voice cut through the quiet of the bridge like a plasma blade. Multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace, she announced, her voice tight with fear. Configuration matches Corvan pirate vessels. They're targeting us with weapons lock. Veltar's blood went cold. The Corvan pirates were notorious throughout this sector of space. They had destroyed entire trading fleets and enslaved the populations of dozen worlds. Their ships were faster, better armed, and crewed by beings who killed for pleasure. Emergency protocols, he ordered, his forearms moving quickly across his control panels. All ships prepare for immediate retreat to minimum safe distance. The 3 Galactic Council vessels in the small diplomatic convoy began their standard defensive maneuvers. Shields powered up to maximum strength while engines prepared for emergency jump to hyperspace. It was the same procedure used by civilized species throughout the galaxy when faced with superior firepower. The human ship Teguk did something completely different. Instead of retreating, the massive vessel accelerated directly toward the approaching pirate fleet. Its nuclear pulse drive began firing rapidly, each controlled explosion pushing the ship faster and faster toward the enemy formation. "Captain Lee, what are you doing?" Veltar's panicked voice crackled across all communication frequencies. "Fall back to minimum safe distance immediately. Those are Corvin battleships." Captain Minho's calm reply came through the static. "Negative, Commander. We're going through them." On the bridge of the Teguk, Lieutenant Park Sora's fingers danced across her control panels as she rerouted power from life support systems to forward shields. Warning lights flashed throughout the ship as non-essential systems shut down automatically. "Power transfer complete," she reported. "Forward shields at 120% of normal capacity." Chief Engineer Kim Daeho's voice echoed from the engine room through the ship's intercom system. "Beginning rapid pulse sequence. All crew prepare for maximum acceleration. This is going to be a rough ride." The nuclear pulse drive began firing at twice its normal rate. Each explosion sent shockwaves through the Teguk's massive frame as the ship rode the controlled chain of nuclear detonations toward the enemy fleet. The crew was pressed deep into their seats by forces that would have crushed the bones of most alien species. "Tactical analysis complete," called out Chief Tactical Officer Cho Min-seo from her weapon station. "Converting pulse drive to proximity weapon mode. Estimated optimal detonation distance for maximum enemy disruption, 15 meters." Veltar listened to this exchange with growing horror. The humans weren't just planning to ram the pirate ships. They were turning their own propulsion system into a weapon that would detonate nuclear charges almost close enough to touch the enemy hulls. The lead Corvin pirate ship opened fire with its plasma cannons. Bright green energy beams lanced through space toward the approaching human vessel. The Teguk's reinforced shields absorbed the impacts in showers of sparks and electromagnetic feedback. "Shields holding at 90%, reported Lieutenant Park. "Minor power fluctuations in sections 7 through 12. Medical bay ready for casualties," added Chief Medical Officer Han Jiwoo over the intercom. "Radiation treatment facilities. Standing by." Captain Minho gripped his command chair as another volley of plasma fire struck their shields. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency, despite the fact that they were essentially riding a guided missile toward one of the most dangerous pirate fleets in known space. "Range to target, 2,000 meters and closing," announced the ship's computer in its eternally calm voice. The Corvin pirates had terrorized dozens of star systems with their superior firepower and ruthless tactics. They had faced council, fleets, corporate security forces, and planetary defense networks. But they had never encountered a species that used their own ship as a weapon while somehow managing to keep it intact and flying. 1,000 meters, reported the computer. 500 meters. 200 meters. "Fire all proximity charges," ordered Captain Minho. The Teguk released a series of small nuclear devices as it punched through the center of the pirate formation. Each charge detonated at precisely calculated distances from the enemy ships, creating a controlled nuclear firestorm that turned space itself into a weapon. The pirate vessels, designed to dish out punishment to helpless merchant ships, found themselves caught in the blast waves of multiple nuclear explosions. Their shields collapsed under the assault while their hulls buckled from the tremendous forces pressing against them. The Teguk surfed through the chaos on a wave of its own making, its massive pusher plate absorbing and redirecting the nuclear fury that would have vaporized any other vessel. Behind it, the pirate formation scattered like leaves in a hurricane. "Damage report," called Captain Minho as the ship cleared the enemy formation. "Minor radiation exposure across all sections," replied Medical Officer Han. "Nothing beyond acceptable limits. Hull integrity at 96%. All major systems operational." Engineer Kim's voice came through the intercom with obvious satisfaction. Pulse drive performing perfectly, Captain. Ready for sustained acceleration if those pirates won a second round. They didn't. The surviving Corvin ships fled toward the edge of the system at maximum speed, their crews broadcasting surrender signals and begging not to be followed by the insane humans who had turned physics itself into a weapon. Commander Veltar's diplomatic vessel limped alongside the Teguk, his crew staring in absolute shock at the humans who had just weaponized their own propulsion system and lived to tell about it. "Captain?" Veltar finally managed to say. "How did you know that would work?" Minho's reply came with obvious amusement. "Same way we know anything works, Commander. We did the math, built it carefully, and tested it thoroughly. The universe follows rules. Once you understand the rules, you can make them work for you instead of against you." The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 weeks later aboard the massive flagship Serenity. Representatives from 47 different species filled the Great Chamber, their various breathing apparatus and environmental suits creating a symphony of mechanical sounds. The air recyclers worked overtime to maintain atmospheric conditions suitable for dozens of different life forms. Chancellor Mordak called the session to order with a series of deep bass tones that his translator converted into standard galactic speech. His species had evolved from ocean dwellers, and his voice still carried the rhythm of underwater communication. "We are here to discuss the human situation," he announced, his large eyes scanning the assembled delegates. "The reports from Commander Veltar have raised serious concerns about this new species and their reckless use of destructive forces." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several delegates activated personal shield generators, a nervous habit that had developed since word of human propulsion methods had spread through council space. Ambassador Jin Hyok entered, the chamber flanked by his small human delegation. Dr. Baek Sunmi carried a tablet filled with technical specifications, while Colonel Ryu Jaehyun observed the alien representatives with the calm alertness of a professional soldier. "Ambassador Jin," Chancellor Mordak began formally, "the Council has reviewed your species' technological capabilities and military potential. After careful consideration, we are prepared to offer humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the benefits and protections such status provides." Jin smiled politely and bowed slightly in the human gesture of respect. "We are honored by your offer, Chancellor. However, after discussing this with our government, humanity has decided to remain independent. We prefer to maintain friendly relations with all Council species without formal political entanglement." A shocked silence filled the chamber. In the 3,000-year history of the Galactic Council, no species had ever declined membership when it was offered. The benefits were enormous. Access to advanced technology, protection from hostile forces, and participation in the galaxy's largest trading network. "Independent?" sputtered Commander Veltar from his position in the observer section. "But surely, you realize the dangers of unregulated expansion through space. There are protocols, safety procedures, established trade routes." Dr. Baek Sunmi consulted her tablet and cleared her throat. "If I may address the Council's concerns about our expansion plans. Our current projects include stellar mass extraction for fusion fuel production, controlled black hole farming for power generation, and theoretical research into supernova energy harvesting techniques." The chamber erupted in alarmed chittering, clicking and whistling as the alien delegates processed this information. Several more personal shields activated automatically as stress levels spiked among the representatives. "Stellar mass extraction?" whispered the Altrurian delegate, her breathing apparatus making distressed sounds. "We're planning to harvest material directly from stars to use as fusion fuel," explained Colonel Ryu matter-of-factly. "Much more efficient than mining asteroids or planetary surfaces. We can extract what we need without significantly affecting stellar output." The Zentari representative's translator struggled with the concept. "You want to steal pieces of stars?" "Not steal," corrected Dr. Baek with a gentle smile. "Borrow. Stars have plenty of material to spare, and we only need tiny amounts relative to their total mass. It's quite sustainable." Chancellor Mordak's large eyes bulged as he processed the implications. "And black hole farming?" "Controlled black hole creation and maintenance," Jin explained calmly. "We generate small artificial black holes, contain them in magnetic fields, and harvest their Hawking radiation for power. Much cleaner than traditional, Fusion reactors. The chamber fell completely silent except for the hum of life support systems. The concept of deliberately creating black holes violated every safety protocol ever established by civilized species. Black holes were cosmic destroyers that consumed everything around them. The supernova research is still theoretical, added Dr. Beck helpfully. We're decades away from practical application. Right now we're focused on smaller projects like converting Jupiter into fusion fuel and establishing mining operations around our galaxy's central black hole. Several delegates fainted at this announcement. Medical teams rushed to assist representatives whose environmental suits had triggered emergency protocols due to extreme stress responses. Commander Veltar stood up slowly, his forearms trembling. Converting Jupiter? Your own planet? Jupiter isn't a planet, Colonel Ryu corrected gently. It's a gas giant with no solid surface, perfect source of fusion fuel. We estimate it contains enough hydrogen to power human civilization for approximately 50,000 years. And Sagittarius A? Asked the Chancellor, referring to the massive black hole at the center of their galaxy. Incredible energy potential, Jin replied with obvious enthusiasm. The gravitational forces around it could power engineering projects beyond anything we've attempted before. We're planning to establish research stations just outside the event horizon. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Chancellor Mordak called out desperately. But what about safety protocols? Galactic regulations? The potential for catastrophic accidents? Ambassador Jin paused at the chamber entrance and turned back with a reassuring smile. Chancellor, humans have been turning dangerous forces into useful tools since we discovered fire. We understand the risks and we take appropriate precautions. Nuclear fusion powers our sun and gives us life. We're simply learning to create that same process wherever we need it. The universe is full of incredible energy sources, added Dr. Beck. Stars, black holes, quantum fluctuations, gravitational waves. We see them as opportunities waiting to be properly understood and harnessed. As the human delegation departed, the assembled aliens sat in stunned silence. Through the chamber's viewports, the lights of human ships twinkled like new stars, each one powered by forces that other species considered too dangerous to approach. Chancellor. Mordak turned to his advisors with a heavy heart. Recommendations? Commander Veltar studied the tactical displays showing human expansion vectors across local space. We have two choices, Chancellor. We can accept that they will reshape this galaxy through controlled application of destructive forces, or we can find ourselves left behind by a species that sees the universe's most dangerous phenomena as engineering challenges waiting to be solved. In the depths of space, construction had already begun on humanity's next generation of vessels designed to surf solar winds between star systems and harvest energy from the cosmic background radiation itself.